Welcome back to On the Beat, everyone. Isaac hosting again this week, and we have Will Cooper back with us from Crowell Gillis and Cooper. This week, we are going to be talking about partition of real property, and you were just educating me on exactly what that is, and why don't you educate the viewers as well, exactly.
Well, initially it sounds like a boring topic, but,
yeah, but you were just telling me it gets spicy.
It can get spicy. It is. It can get pretty dicey. So partition of real land occurs when you have co-owners of real property, a piece of real estate,
sure,
and they decide that they no longer want to be co-tenants.
Okay.
And so there is a way in the law to divide that land. So that's what partition is.
Okay, so kind of gets us into the first real question here. How do we go about determining what exactly is a partition suit?
Yeah, so what happens is, and most of the time this occurs in heirship property, where a family or a group of children or a group of first cousins or whatever have inherited a piece of property, and they are co-tenants in that property, and it may be 100 acres, there may be 10 owners, and they decide they want to divide it.
Okay.
Our law says that it favors what's called partition in kind, where you would divide the property up.
Okay.
But as you can imagine, there's a lot of struggles that come into that. Number one, the property may be, one piece may have timber and the other pasture land or
sure,
crop land. So
it could be a lake in there.
Right. It could be very hard to divide in kind.
I see.
And if that is the case, then it has to be divided what's called a partition by sale.
Okay.
And it has to be sold.
Okay, that's a lot of layers there. So why would one need to file a partition suit?
Yeah, and so just like I said, you have an absolute right in Mississippi, if excluding homestead property, and that's a whole nother subject, but you have an absolute right to divide property that you own. And so Mississippi has recently adopted, in 2020, they adopted a partition by heirship property. It's a Uniform Act of Partition of Heirship Property, and it actually puts some very specific, tedious regulations on dividing property that is owned by heirs. But why would you want to do it? Well, you want to do it either because you all can't get along, or you want the money out of the property instead of the land. A lot of different reasons, but just keep in mind that you have an absolute right to partition it either by dividing it up or selling it, following court regulations.
Okay, so with these regulations in mind, how does the case then proceed?
So the case proceeds by filing a lawsuit. Just like you file a lawsuit for damages, you file a partition lawsuit, and you serve everybody with those papers.
So you're basically suing the other tenants.
You're not really, you're suing them, correct. They are what's called interested parties.
Okay.
But yes, they would be the defendants.
Okay.
And if you prevail, if the court decides to divide it, then the court can actually require those tenants, those co-tenants, to help pay the attorney fees.
Okay, that's the last question. So, but what happens, I guess, if you don't, like if I didn't prevail?
Well,
who would then pay the legal fees?
Keep in mind that you have an absolute right to have it partited, to have it divided. So there is going to be a prevailing party.
Sure.
And as long as it's economical to do it, for example, by sale, then the court will assess those fees to all the interested parties involved.
Whether they're the plaintiff or the defendant?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Good information. I guess we could fill up a whole 30 minutes.
Oh, we could. We could talk
talking about that. But
especially when you talk about the new act Mississippi passed. Very tedious, very hard to follow, but
so there's guys like you to read through it, right?
You got it. You're going to have an attorney there, I can assure you.
Absolutely. Well, Will, we appreciate your expertise on that matter, and if you need any additional information, the information needed is listed there on your screen, and we'll be back after this.